Hey there, folks. I wanted to record a more personal roll call this week. We had some technical difficulties and we're ramping up a lot of different things, and so I wanted to make sure people could prioritize the work they had. And I thought this might be a good opportunity to talk about someone folks might have heard me talk about before, and a situation and a subject folks might have heard me talk about before, but one that's pretty important to me. So, veteran suicide. A lot of people have heard the number 22, the number of vets who take their own life every day. You know, this country has an interesting history when it comes to caring for veterans. Consistently, since the Revolutionary War, we've failed to take care of the people and protect and defend the people who protected and defended us. I think it's time we change that for the first time. I think a lot of America today is patting ourselves on the back for nothing instead of actual accomplishments. And so I hope to see zero suicides one day as a whole, but the toll that war takes on people, it ripples out through the rest of our society. Again, my buddy Tony got his obit up there to remind me. And we weren't best friends. We didn't hang out every day. He served from 2000 to 2004, and he left and did odd jobs and did stand-up comedy, and I met him through stand-up. And stand-up's a pretty small community. You don't meet the most veterans, and when you do, you all get to swap your stories, mostly funny stories, the ones you end up telling on stage, the ones about pretty often for us younger vets, when you use a porta potty and it's 140 degrees outside, and that, let's just say the blue water gets a lot hotter than 140 degrees. But you know, sometimes you go out and you have a few beers and you end up hearing the not so funny stories. And that's something that we do to people as a society when we allow war that is built on lies. I mean, I'm people know I'm not. You know, I think there's a time for military action. You know, I'm part Jewish, and I know that there are people in World War II who, despite the terrible, terrible things they had to go through as soldiers, they released people from concentration camps, and they wouldn't trade that experience. They were there to save people's lives in a real way, and maybe save the world in some ways. But that's not every war, and we know that we were lied to. We know that we've been lied to. We know that a lot of these wars we stay in either to make some people money, or maybe just because of the ego of people who don't want to admit that they didn't have a plan to get out. And the toll is one that we pay, you and I, missing the people that we love. I hadn't had a lot of close experience with suicide when my friend took his life, and I remember that morning I cried so hard. And I was surprised, and I felt a little bit ashamed. Like, why am I so upset? We weren't best friends. I mean, I saw him sometimes 5 times a week. We did a road gig. Drove 5 hours across the state. Didn't make enough money because I produced the show and it was a bust, and so it was a tiny crowd. We didn't make enough money to get an Airbnb, so we got to drive back after nobody, not a lot of laughs, and it was a long night, but you know, it brings you close to people. And so I guess the way I honor the legacy of the fallen in the personal way that I know, and that I've had that experience of losing someone I care about, is by trying to make sure that we don't have any more suicides, and that we don't have any more unnecessary military actions, that we don't let greed and corruption result in our loved ones becoming cannon fodder. Because you don't honor dead soldiers by making more dead soldiers. And so I ask you to please remember, when you go out and vote, and when you volunteer, and when you contribute to campaigns, and maybe even when you decide to run yourself or volunteer for organizations that have this mission, that you're You're saving the world. You're saving people's lives. Um, you're saving the lives of people who are never going to know how their life would have been different if we had gone into some future wars, ending the forever wars that we're in now. Um, it matters, so let's save the world together. Take care.